Guys, welcome back to the AddMeGamers channel, and this is Dan. I'm going to be continuing game 2 between SjoW and Bischu, of course, in comparison to Stephano and dBLinG. So far in game 1 I did go down to SjoW and Bischu, so I'm going to probably call him SjoW and yeah, Bischu, and then we do have, of course, dBLinG and Stephano. Stephano obviously on the bottom left corner, and he is going to be playing the blue Zerg this time with the dBLinG, and on the top right we do have Bischu and SjoW. So I might just call him Jew, so Joe. So we're going to have SjoW and Bischu. So SjoW as the red Terran player, and on the top right we do have Bischu, of course, as the red Protoss player. So far in game 1 I did go down to these two players. A very nice play by Bischu and SjoW, and SjoW did manage to get up a very heavy bio army. Seriously, it was really a massive bio army that consisted of Marines and Marauders, and that's all he was really relying on. So far, of course, the first wall off coming up by both players, Bischu and SjoW. And we do have dBLinG obviously moving down with that initial gateway as close as possible, so he doesn't waste any time in producing that initial gateway unit itself. And Stephano, is he going to go for that second hatchery again like he did before? Time will tell, though. We do have, of course, those overloads streaming across the map to be able to scout out in terms of what to expect. But by the time those overloads do get there, they will sort of die. So really the scouting is left to dBLinG. So dBLinG is going to be have to do all the scouting in terms of being able to spot out everything. So let's see what dBLinG actually managed to scout out. He will manage to scout out that he is still on his first Nexus, and of course he does have that first gateway in production, so we should see probably Cybernetics core be coming online as soon as possible the moment that gateway does finish. But again, we shall see exactly what tactic he will be using. Of course, he's going to be moving down now to the secondary base. We do have that nearly complete wall off. I do believe there might still be a little passageway through. Will he? No, there isn't. So no actual scouting. It's going to be coming down to dBLinG. dBLinG, of course, moving back with that actual probe itself. And yes, I think there was a little bit of a wall. There was a little bit of a hole. That Marine did manage to plug that as well. So Tech Lab coming online. So we should finally see, I do believe, early a Marauder play. Combat research, combat shield coming online. So Marine life is gained by 10%. So again, SjoW is going for that Marine heavy build. Here comes that overlord from Stephano. Stephano obviously trying to scout out SjoW's base. We do have the metabolic boost coming online for Stephano as well. A couple of stalkers coming down by dBLinG in Stephano's side. So finally dBLinG is going very gateway heavy, very gateway heavy. He is producing very early harass by dBLinG, so I do believe they are pretty pissed off since they lost the last game. So finally the first stalker coming up, and I'm not sure if they're actually in communication between Stephano or not. So far, really interesting game. I do know, of course, SjoW is going for those barracks and those Marines like he did before, since we did have that research and we did have that combat shield research coming online. Of course, the Zergling harass coming down by Stephano is going to be able to do. We do have those two Marines, so that should pretty much push those Zerglings and keep them at bay. Finally, a complete wall off by Bischu. Bischu obviously having that Stalker and those Zealots, so that's really a complete wall off with those units. So far so good. And there was that Cybernetics core. Of course, we do have that gateway research coming online, and two gateways, though none of them are knowing. I do believe that dBLinG is just going for that one Nexus push, so he's not really even going to be going for that secondary Nexus. He is going all out for that one base push. So here comes that frontal pylon, and of course we do have the warpins, and Stephano knows that. We do have a couple of Bailings, so they are going for that Bailing bust, backed up by a couple of Stalkers and maybe a few Zealots as well. So more units streaming across the map, and he knows this is happening, though. Stephano is obviously backing up BLING's push, and here comes the push, and they are moving forward. They are in for quite a big surprise, though. Here comes the Bailing bust. They're going to be taking down those supply depots. Of course, fell down. Here comes the push. I don't believe he's going to be able to reinforce Bischu. Bischu should be taken out by these Bailings, so these Bailings should pretty much take out the rest of the units themselves, though. Are they going to continue moving for him? The push is pretty much moving in pretty heavy in terms of SjoW's base, and of course all those SCVs being pulled off the line and deciding to retreat. SjoW doesn't want to lose those SCVs, so more of course units being streamed down by Bischu. Bischu trying to support SjoW, but SjoW is not really going to do much in terms of being able to attack this back. All his Marines got lost, and really the defense just come down to Bischu with his 3 Stalkers. So the remnants of the Stalkers did manage to drop, but a very nice, you can say, push by Stephano and dBLinG. Very heavy damage, and he should continue up this harass and continue pushing down SjoW's base, as SjoW seems to be, I do believe, the superior player between SjoW and Bischu. So Joe is the superior player. A little bit of kiting by those stalkers, of course, managing to do very nice damage. And Stephano just throwing in those 2 zealots, and finally they did decide to retreat, as they do want to cut those losses down. More warpins come in, and dBLinG is really going for that initial harass, but Stephano really can't sustain that by himself, especially with the backup of both the team players. So he really can't push out alone. He really needs Stephano to back him up. He's really going on empty here. He can't keep up with very nice kiting from SjoW, and of course very nice kiting from Joe as well. So they are kiting their units, and they should pretty much take out these units, including drop this actual pylon itself. It just moves a little bit ahead, so that pylon is going to drop, and that should cool down dBLinG's actual assault on their base though. So that's the end of the pylon, and he does decide to finally move back. And is he going to be going for that secondary base though? So far none of the players are going for that secondary base. They all of them sort of did plan out to do that one base push, so nothing really happening in terms of these units at all. We do have, of course, all those units moving in to the actual midsection for both players to keep that entrance backed up in case Stephano and dBLinG decides to push out. So Bischu and Joe are actually on the retaliation mode right now. They are going to be pushing back. They are going to retaliate for that push that's going to be happening, but I do believe there should be plenty if not more than enough to deal with this actual unit composition. So we do have a couple of stalkers on the high ground. We do have that pylon that should allow those warpins to that lower ground, and they are moving back. Those Zerglings are going to push forward. Those kiting by those Marines should be able to take care of those Zerglings. Force field gets placed down, really pointless. Those dBLinGs are going to try to pop on those Marines, but so far nothing really happens. Of course, Stephano did lose those Zerglings, and now he is kiting with those stalkers to try to keep those stalkers alive as long as possible though. Stephano really needs to pull his ground here though, because so far really dBLinG is keeping this you could say push and defense alive between these two players though. These Marines should pretty much drop. There's nothing really in for it here. Of course Zerglings do come in to surround those Marines and take care of the rest of the Zerglings, so the rest of the Marines. And we do finally have that second command center coming online for Joe, and Joe really is going for that Marine heavy push like he did in the first game. So more gateways of course being produced, and 4 more dBLinGs, 5 more dBLinGs for Stephano. No second hatchery for any of the players so far. They are really working off that one base push. Only Joe is going for that second base. So if Joe manages to get that second base nicely saturated, I do believe that this game again is going to go to Joe and Bischu. So finally pushes coming down. Those dBLinGs are going to be targeted down. Those dBLinGs drop. A couple of zealots going for those stalkers themselves. We do have, of course, those Marines pushing out against those stalkers. Will that bunker drop though? That bunker does drop. He didn't manage to cancel it, so again those resources are being lost. Just Zerglings from Stephano is not really going to do it though. dBLinG is really going in all out, and Stephano really needs to bring in something in comparison to retaliate against this amount of stalkers and this amount of Marines. He really needs to get that roach worm at least up and running, but he doesn't have the time, and if that bunker comes up, that's really it in terms of this push at all for dBLinG and Stephano. Of course, Joe moving up with his Marines, and of course Bischu as well. So far a little bit of kiting going on, push and tug of war between the two players themselves. Again, another push moving forward. That bunker is finally up and running, so this pretty much should push back dBLinG. dBLinG can no way move forward and take that bunker down really easily. He really needs a substantially greater army though, more dBLinGs morphing in, so maybe those dBLinGs will be managing to do that dBLinG bust on that bunker to drop that bunker itself though. Just a little bit of kiting by dBLinG, but as long as Bischu keeps these Marines, I mean the stalkers at bay and Stephanos, then he is going to be getting that second command center up and running, which is going to give him that extra resource, and I do believe Joe is going to have an advantage. Of course, this is just an all-out stalker fight. Zerglings moving in, a couple of dBLinGs as well being thrown into the mix. He doesn't even want to bother letting those dBLinGs pop somewhere else. Now he is going to be going for that. Is he going to go for that bunker? No, he is not. Joe, of course, throwing down a couple of Marines to keep that bunker up and alive and ready and repaired. We do have more warpins coming, more zealots coming in, and so far, nothing really in terms of Stephano. Stephano is finally going for that second hatchery, substantially delayed by Joe's second command center, so not really looking up in terms of dBLinG and Stephano's side though. Joe and Bischu are really doing a great job in terms of this, and dBLinG, is he going to be pushing out? No, he's waiting for more warpins. He really can't counter this bunker itself, and we do have those 2 SCVs obviously hiding out and waiting to repair that bunker. Look at the amount of SCVs here. I mean, look at the amount of Marines backed up from those. If he needs blink research, if he had blink research, he could maybe blink up and do a little bit of damage, but so far he isn't going to be able to do much. dBLinG is not really doing much in terms of being able to push out, because alone he can go up against the 2 actual bases themselves. Do we finally have that roach worm in play? Finally the roach worm is coming from Stephano, and blink research is coming for dBLinG, so that's That's exactly what the dBLiNG needs. He really needs to get that dBLiNG research online. Unfortunately, once that stim pack comes online, again, I don't see this very positively for dBLiNG and Stephano. And that second base is nearly saturated. Let's take a look at the actual saturation. Look at the amount of mules as well. So far, that secondary base is very well saturated, so we do have a lot of units coming in, and of course, the dBLiNG with that dBLiNG research already nearly complete. Of course, SjoW going for, again, that starport, so it's going to be hot swapping, I do believe, with that factory, and it's going to be doing those double medevacs to keep those Marines alive once the stim research is complete. So finally, the Stalker numbers are a little bit equal, of course, Bischu just a little bit less, but so far, Stephano really needs to pull his weight. Stephano not really going all out in this game at all. He is too busy trying to drone up and try to get his economy running. Zergs really do need a little bit of time, and early on in the game, they really can't do much. They really need at least a good 5 to 10 minutes, but since he didn't get that second base built up, he can't really push out, especially since he needs those resources. So finally, hopefully that second hatchery will come into play, but I do believe it's a little bit too late because SjoW has already that second base very well saturated. Of course, Bischu and SjoW are really cramped in that base, but once that stim research comes online and those medevacs come forward, I do believe that push is going to be coming out by SjoW and Bischu as well. So more and more warpins coming down from Bischu. Of course, look at the production line for SjoW, and we do have finally those 10 roaches, so finally Stephano might be able to do something in terms of this. We finally have the dBLiNG research coming online. Here comes the push. They are going to be pushing out. No, they are not going to be pushing out. If they did push out altogether, they would have actually managed to push back this actual stalker heavy force by the dBLiNG. The dBLiNG obviously going very heavy, not letting them to expand, so they are really stuck down on these two bases themselves. But Bischu not going for that second nexus. He is just droning up, getting, those stalkers and those zealots as much as possible. All resources are being thrown into the actual production line, into those gateway units. Finally, the roaches are starting to appear. So will we finally see a push, though? I do believe that push should be very stimmed up. Marines should pretty much wipe this stalker army out. Will that actual pylon drop? No, he is going around. He is chasing down those zealots by the dBLiNG, but nothing really is going to happen. Finally, those Marines are going to be spread out, and a push is coming forward. He did target fire those dBLiNGs. None of those dBLiNGs did manage to move forward. He did kite a little bit by those Marines. They're a little bit flanked by those Stalkers. Stalkers are going to be dropping by Bischu. More Marines are going to be moving forward, but I do believe with those roaches in play that Stephano might be able to do a little bit of damage, but so far more Marines come in, and more stimmed up Marines are going to be moving forward, and they're going to force the retreat of the dBLiNG. The dBLiNG is really not going to be able to cope with this many Marines, and especially with the mixture of Stalkers as well, and so he's going to be moving back. Of course, finally the push is coming by dBLiNG and SjoW. So SjoW and Bischu are going to be pushing down. Look at the amount of Stalkers again coming down by dBLiNG. So they are actually going to be holding off this push itself. More Zerglings being pushed in, and a couple of more roaches as well. Of course, I do believe that this army should pretty much drop, and they should be able to push out, especially with those roaches into play. Stephano really needs to get those roaches into play. Stephano's roaches are key in being able to win this, especially against that very heavy bio build by SjoW and Bischu. So finally here comes the push. Of course they are retreating. They really have nothing left to retreat to, only this bunker. We do have 2 more barracks coming online for SjoW. So SjoW is really still going for that heavy bio build. dBLiNG research finally coming online by Bischu. A little bit too late. He doesn't really need that dBLiNG in terms of being able to defend his base, but I do believe that was a little bit of waste resources. He could have used it on producing more units, but anyways, that might give him a strategic advantage in case they do decide to push out. We do have that +1 finally coming online for those Marines, but so far no upgrades coming for any other player though. This is really frustrating, because with the amount of Marines that SjoW has, he could pretty much do a very decent amount of damage. Of course, he is trying to move in, try to do a little bit of harass, but nothing's going to really happen. That dBLiNG by those Stalkers, by dBLiNG to the higher ground, did manage to take out the pylon and those 2 gateway units, and we do have another push coming in by those roaches. Unfortunately, that bunker didn't drop. He really needed that bunker to drop. Medevacs being targeted down, medevacs dropping, so that'll prevent those Marines to be able to sustain that life. Again, we do have 1 Marine coming in, more blinked Stalkers. I do believe finally Stephano and dBLiNG might have an advantage here though, as there are just a few of those medevacs. Of course, more medevacs coming in, more Zerglings being streamed across the map, and dBLiNG is really going all out. He is pushing all out, and those Stalkers are going to drop by Bischu and SjoW. SjoW is going to retreat. Finally, dBLiNG moving forward by dBLiNG. dBLiNG is moving forward, and those rest of those remaining medevacs should drop. He really needs to drop that bunker. That bunker is really keeping everything at bay. Once that bunker drops, he did blink back very quickly, and those Zerglings are going to stream back. Now Stephano needs those roaches. Those roaches got to be here. If he had at least 10 roaches, he would easily push through this actual building block itself, and of course more medevacs are being streamed across the map to supply those Marines, but no upgrades so far. So once that upgrade 1-1 happens for SjoW's going to be pretty much on a very good advantage though. So far, dBLiNG obviously just working off that one base build, so I don't believe he can sustain this. Of course, now we do have those Marauders into play. We don't have only Marines. We do have a couple of Marauders, making that life for those Stalkers just a little bit more difficult, though. So, but really, dBLiNG needs to expand for that second Nexus, though. It's really all down on dBLiNG's side. Stephano needs that time, as those Zerg players need time to get that really strong push up and running. A little bit of stim coming down by SjoW. SjoW moving forward. Joe is actually moving forward, and one force field, really pointless force field. Just managed to split the remaining second force field, but really isn't moving forward. So those force fields are really just waste of energy, though. But that we do have that one Roach. Obviously, that Roach died by Stephano, and again Joe moving in with his Marines, and again stimming up those Marines, but those Marines moving back as they're nearly dead. Again, dBLiNG comes down, managed to take out those Stalkers themselves, and he is going to be able to mop up, I do believe, the rest of these units themselves. Of course, Stephano just sending in a couple of Zerglings to annoy the living shit out of everything, as Zerglings really won't do anything, just absorb the fire by Joe's and Bischu's army. So the Zerglings were just meant to die, but absorb that fire to keep dBLiNG's army up and running, because Stephano really needs time. He needs time to get those units that he requires up and running. I do believe dBLiNG is actually running out of resources. He is on the last mine base, and is he going to be dropping down? He is already long distance mining. dBLiNG is really at the end. He really did push and managed to do everything he can. Really, the continuation of this game is now relying on Stephano being able to keep his foothold and being able to support now dBLiNG, as dBLiNG is going to have to be going for that second Nexus and be able to drone up again that second Nexus itself. So really interesting to see what happens. Of course, targeting fire, those medevacs should prevent those Marines from continuing to stim up, and another dBLiNG comes down forward, and he unfortunately doesn't manage to take out that one Stalker. And we do have that retaliation by Joe. Joe moving forward. He's just going to be taking out that pylon. Yes, he is going to try to take out that pylon to prevent those warpins. Of course, I do believe those Stalkers are going to drop, including those medevacs, and a couple of more warpins coming in. Very nice round by Zerg, by Stephano moving down those units. But I do believe this is it. dBLiNG, Stephano, and they call it a well-played game. And that's it for both the players. Unfortunately, Stephano wasn't really able to pull his weight here. He really wasn't doing much. I do believe dBLiNG was really pushing all out as much as he could. Unfortunately, this game did actually finally go down 2-0 to Joe and Bischu. So this is it for the second game. As always, give it a thumbs up if you like it, leave down your comments, and subscribe. And see you guys later. Happy gaming.